two, one.
Welcome to another episode of Wine Down with Kev, the Dream Chaser podcast. Right now, we're on a mission. We are doing 50 podcasts with 50 agents from 50 different states. That's right. Crazy. But if it's crazy, that's me. But before we start the podcast, let me start humbly and gratefully by saying thank you to all of you for tuning in, for watching the podcast, for subscribing and following at Wine Down with Kev on YouTube. Greatly appreciate it. Everything I do, I must start with gratefulness and humility before I say anything else. That being said, we are on a mission today. We are headed to the great state of Utah, where we are going to meet an amazing agent. He's a great all-state agent. He's an amazing husband and father with quite an incredible background. Most importantly, he is someone that I'm very proud to call my friend. Ladies, gentlemen, subscribers, let me introduce you to Curtis Osler. Curtis, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you for being here. Curtis, we're going to talk about some insurance stuff, but man, the art you have in the back of your office, you've got two of my favorite people back there. Talk to me about how you came about getting that Karl Malone jersey and John Stockton, the leading man in assists in NBA basketball history. How does someone get those jerseys?
Well, don't forget Stills too. He's
Yes. I'm not going to slight him. He was slight of height, but not of toughness and not of skills.
So I had the opportunity in high school to become a ball boy for the Jazz. I had a friend who told me that his brother was a ball boy for the Jazz, and that's what I wanted to go do. And so I had to go and hustle my way in. Most people had an opportunity where they had someone that worked for the Jazz, and that's how they got into be a ball boy. But I just went and hounded the guy. His name was TC, who ended up being my boss, and I hounded him for about a year to let me come in and be a ball boy. And so I was able to get to know both of them, work back in the locker rooms, go to practices, see a lot of really cool stuff, and meet a lot of really cool people. Like I got to see players from all around the league. I got to be in the locker room with Michael Jordan when he was with the Wizards. It was a really neat experience and something I'll never forget.
Well, with you being in the arena, I believe the most famous game ever that took place in Utah, as it relates to Michael Jordan, I have to ask you, were you there for Game 6, the flu game?
So I was in the building, but I was only 11 or 12 years old. So a family friend who actually got me into the insurance space, or got me pushing towards the insurance space, he got us tickets to that. My dad and I were able to go to that, and that was really, looking back, it was really cool. As a Jazz fan, I wasn't super happy at the time, but being there, part of history, that was cool.
I love it. I'm not going to ask you if you have a friendship with the place that served them the pizza that supposedly is the reason that things didn't go well. So I'm not going to ask you that. I'm not going to put you in a position to incriminate anybody. So Curtis, my man, I'm so glad that you're here with me on the podcast. I tried to give you a nice, warm introduction. Tell the people something about yourself that I didn't say.
I've got a wonderful wife. She is currently she just started her doctorate of nurse practitioners at the University of Utah. So she's been a nurse for the last 15 plus years, and it's time for her to try something else. And she helped me start this business 9 years ago, and now it's her turn to go back and do something cool. And I've got two wonderful kids, a 7-year-old, her name's Jules, and she's in 2nd grade, and a 3-year-old who's got way more energy than I know what to do with, and his name's Bo.
I love it. Shout out to your wonderful wife. Had a chance to hang out with you and your wife. Kind of my pre-birthday celebration. We're down in Cancun for CWC, wonderful conference. And then my son put together a little bit of a boat ride, a yacht ride. You and your wife jumped in.
Yeah.
We journeyed out there together and just had a really, really good time on the water. But Curtis, I got to say that little yacht ride, that's as far as I go. But you're a real outdoorsman. You get in the water for real, and you do some different things that are a little bit outside of my lane. Talk to me about some of your outdoor activities and things you like to do.
So before I started all this, I had the opportunity to hang out with my uncle's friends, and we went river rafting all the time. It was really cool. I've been 12 days rafting through the Grand Canyon, where we pack up a raft and we just floated down the river for 12 days, camping on the side, seeing stuff that you'd never see otherwise. It's just really, really cool. We've been up in the main salmon up in Idaho. That was amazing. It's just really cool. And then all over Utah, like if you're bored in Utah, it's your fault, really, because there's so much to do. Unless you're looking for something to do with the ocean, you can do basically everything you'd want to do in Utah outdoors wise.
So Curtis, you're very even keeled like I am, and you say floating down the river like it's easy. But I did a little research before this podcast. You're over 4,100 feet above sea level. So when you say floating down, I'm counting down 4,000 feet. Am I wrong to be paranoid and to think that way?
Oh no, you're not going 4,000 feet from here down. I mean, it's pretty steady down. Like the Grand Canyon is 280 miles, right? Because it winds all through the Grand Canyon, and it's a pretty even all the way down. But there's some pretty big drops where sometimes you're going 12 feet waves, and the boat in front of you that's 16 feet, you don't see it as it comes up through the waves. They call it the wave train, and it's better than any roller coaster you could ever want to be on.
Yeah, Curtis, you lost me at 12 feet, man. You lost me. That's a little bit more intense for Kev. Kev likes the flatlands here in New York. That's me. That's my Knicks shirt that I'm wearing today. I like a little urban flat ground, but I can enjoy this experience vicariously through your eyes. So thank you for sharing that with us, and sharing that if you're bored in Utah, it's your fault. We're going to talk a little insurance business.
Yes, sir.
And then we're going to come back to some more sports, because that ball boy thing is in your past. But hey, well, let's stay here. You just did some pretty exciting things. You went on the field for Allstate for a major football game this past season. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I was able to get chosen for the BYU Utah game. They like to call it the Holy War here in Utah because of the Mormon rivalry. Brigham Young started the University of Utah, but then the school down south was named after him. So it's always a little contentious a little bit. So they call it the Holy War. So I was able to go out on the field during that game, and Utah wasn't supposed to even compete in that game. And I was able to be out there on the field, and Utah was doing really well. So it was exciting at the time, and the game didn't end up the way that I wanted it to, but it was really cool to be out on the field. That was the first time that I've been able to do that, and it's just really neat. And getting text messages from people around the stadium that knew me, that said that was cool. It was a neat experience.
I love it. And when I'm podcasting, when I'm selling, when I'm coaching, when I talk to people, I listen to what you say and I listen to what you don't say. So I heard it loud and clear when you said there's the Utah school and then the other school down south. So
we got that one from Urban Meyer when he was here, when he was the coach of Utah. It's the team down south.
I love it. Well, I'm sure you have customers in both places, so we'll be nice. We won't dig into that any further. You've got customers that are alumni of both. So, Curtis, let's dial back 9 years. You gave credit to your wife, and I want to shout her out as well. You mentioned 12 years as a nurse, but not just a nurse. If my memory serves me correctly, and sometimes it doesn't, trauma nurse. Am I correct?
Cardiac ICU.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
I knew it was something major. I knew it was nothing like cardiac ICU. So when they get to her, it's pretty important. All the lights are on.
She's pretty cool. the stuff she does and the stuff she comes home and tells me. Sometimes I don't want to hear all of it, but she does some pretty cool stuff.
God, well, it's 38 years in the marriage business. I've learned to listen. I'm not really that good at it, but my favorite scripture, Curtis, is study to be quiet. Just don't say anything and listen. Engage, be present in that moment, and the rest of it works out. So let's go back to 9 years ago. You said you got in the insurance business 9 years ago and your wife helped you get in. Help our listeners, help us understand. What does that mean? How did that work?
So I was working for a vitamin company at the time, a multi-level marketing company. I did marketing, and then I also traveled around the country helping our young distributors. I created an entire group for the company of the young distributors in the company, because I could see that the older distributors were coming up, and they were getting tired, and at some point they were going to retire, and I wanted to work there a long time. But I realized that we needed a younger generation. So I was traveling all over the country, helping these younger distributors figure out how to run their businesses and different things like that. And then I met my wife 11 years ago on Valentine's Day. So we're coming up on 11 years.
Nice.
And we got married, and it'll be 10 years that we're married here in May. And I needed to kind of go out and do my own thing. And coming out of college, out of the University of Utah in 2009, I had a job lined up with Cincinnati Financial, and it coincided with the downfall with the housing crisis in 2008. And so all those financial jobs kind of went away. So
yes.
that job with Cincinnati Financial went away. So I went to work for For Life, right? And while I was there, I learned a lot of great skills, and I'm like, I need to go do my own thing, because I'm teaching all these kids how to run their businesses, but I need to go do my own thing. And so I was looking at a bunch of different opportunities: State Farm, Allstate, Farmers. Wasn't really that big on Farmers, but I was looking at all of the different opportunities, and it worked out that I was able to. Someone that I used to date, her sister was an FSL at the time, and she signed me up and got me going. And my wife really is my superpower. I was able to not take a paycheck for 2.5 years, and the opportunity that I had working in the multi-level marketing company, like, helped me set my expectations of that this was going to be a long road, and I needed to have patience, and it was going to work out if I just kept grinding and working every single day to try to get to the goals.
I love it. How's it working for you 9 years later? Are you happy with the decision?
I am. It was a little hairy there for a while, because I had to. I didn't fully realize what I was getting myself into. So, but if you would have asked me that probably like 6-7 years ago, I would have told you no. But today, 100%, this has been the best thing that I could have done for myself, for my family, and just the freedom that I'm able to have to do what I need to do has just been incredible.
I love it. And, a lot of times we spend time talking about the earning opportunities, the money opportunities, the job creation for other people. But freedom is the ultimate goal. Freedom is the ultimate goal for everyone, to have the time to choose how you want to spend that time. I think that's the ultimate goal. So, Curtis, how does someone listening to this get into the insurance business in Utah? What do they have to do?
Really, you got to take the tests, right? I use Kaplan or ExamFX, and then the really cool thing is, I don't know if this is available in other states, but you can take your tests online. You just have to show that there's no cheating materials in the room with you at the time that you're taking it. But getting into the insurance business, like I said, I tried to get in with State Farm, and they wanted me to have had experience, and I didn't have experience. It's probably a pretty good idea to have experience. I got lucky. I got really lucky to have gotten to where I have without the experience. But I think a lot of that came from the expectations that I had kind of set for myself early on with the multi-level marketing company and different things like that.
I love it. I want to go back to how the MLM experience helped you with leadership, but I want to ask the next question that pops in my mind with coming into a new business venture, not as an employee, but as an owner. How is the training and support you received once you became an agent?
With Allstate, you mean?
Yes.
Well, I told you that the gal that signed me up, she was the sister of someone I had dated at the time. My first day, she calls me and tells me that she had taken a job in Tennessee as the TSL. And it took them a while to replace her. So if it wasn't for Craig Wiggins and Joseph Puckett, I wouldn't be where I am today. They and the groups, that was my training.
I love it. So for those that don't know, you sought out mentorship from Craig Wiggins coaching, CWC, Joseph Puckett, who helped Craig with everything at the time. How did you come across CWC? How did you find it? And how did that mentorship change the trajectory of your career?
Well, luckily I had someone add me to the Transform Your Agency group.
Yes.
And that was invaluable. I remember I had a lot of anxiety attacks and panic attacks, which is not something that I was prone to before, but just worried about being able to do things. And I remember laying in bed one night, I can't even remember what the problem was, but thinking there has got to be someone else that's dealt with this. And so I jumped on to Transform Your Agency, and I just started asking question after question after question, because I didn't have any real support from local leadership. There was a couple FSLs that would help me out here and there, but they weren't my person. So I just kept asking question after question, and really that's how I got connected with Craig and Joseph and Tom Bianco and Jeff Heidelberger, Mark Mercer. Like I've been very blessed to have so many people help me along my journey. It's been incredible to just the community. I wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for the community.
I love it, Curtis. I love it. Those answers were underneath the other statements, and I definitely had to dig it out and give just credit where it's due. So shout out to everyone whose name that you named in that remark. Let me ask you this. You graduated from college the same year as my son, Kevin, who you hung out with on the yacht in Cancun. He had the exact same experience, graduating from college in 2009. And pretty much the pre-graduation speech was, thanks for coming. We have no jobs for you, but if you have some more money to spend, you can stay here and get a master's degree. So that wasn't really a good feeling, being in New York, graduating to the belly of the beast. So definitely can relate to it. So you go into MLM. How much did you learn about recruiting and building a team in that capacity? And how has it helped you as an Allstate agent?
Oh, there's so much that I learned from that, because I wasn't a multi-level marketer myself. I worked directly for the company. My dad was the CFO at the time. So that was my in. Luckily, I had that in during that time. And I was able to start creating training materials for the new distributors that were coming in. I created a whole new distributor kit to help people on what to do when they come in. And when I came over to insurance, I realized how similar the two were, because really all you're doing is duplicating yourself over and over and over again. And also there's a guy, his name's Eric Worre, and he had this whole CD list. For those of you who don't know what CDs are, right? It's just audio. I'm that old. And a lot of the things that Eric Worre talked about, like getting a mentor, like you've got to have a mentor. And that's why I sought out people like I did, like Craig and Joseph and other people. So that was a big thing. Those are things that I learned that I needed to have to help keep me accountable. But also there was something that Eric Worre, I remember him vividly talking about, that when he first got into the multi-level marketing industry, he went to a convention, and his mentor at the time pulled him aside backstage and said, look at all these people out here. If you want to be the best of the best, look at all these people. Half of them will show up next time, and then half of those people will show up the next time. So if you want to be successful, make sure you're always going to the events every single time, because the people that are successful long term go to those events. The energy that you're going to get at an in-person event is invaluable. That's why I love, like, when we went to Cancun, there's stuff that you said in Cancun that I still think about today, that if we were on a Zoom call or something like that in a big group, like, it just wouldn't come off the same way. And then the relationships you make. So those have been two of the major things that I've taken away from the MLM industry. And again, that's been almost 10 years ago. So, but I don't think without my experience doing that and creating the new distributor kit that I would have been as successful as I was, because I had those expectations that this isn't a get rich quick scheme.
No.
It's a get rich slow, right? And you've got to be willing to go after the slow dimes, not fast pennies.
Man, I love everything that you said. Man, I love it. I had some notes where I was going to jump in, but let me go here. I love that he said for you to get a mentor. Definitely something I live by, practice by faith. But you said something else. You said go to the events. So many times we get into a mind space that I didn't win the gold, platinum, or the silver trophy that the company encouraged. I'm speaking all age, not just Allstate. Right. The audience is a lot of people that I get down and out on myself. But the beauty of CWC, Texas Leaders Forum, Midwest Forum, all these other forums that are out there, it puts you in a room with other agents. You expand your network and you get to feel better. And I tell you, I'll tell anybody that goes, whenever I have a chance to speak on stage, so try to leave with a couple of things. Try to leave with one idea and the phone number of one friend. If you get both of those things done, you've had a great conference, because there's no cap on how much money you can make with that one idea. And there's no cap on how far you can go with having that one friend. You and I, me being in New York, you being in Utah, we don't get together for coffee often, but when we're on a trip, you're a breakfast person like me, we're going to have coffee together. Right. We do something outside, we're going to do that together. So that's definitely a beautiful thing. And I think that's a good statement. Knowing your journey, if someone were to approach you and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast, I'd love to get into the insurance business. What do you think? A lot has changed in 9 years since you've been here. How would you answer that question?
Well, I had an agent call me that got out of the game. I actually purchased his book of business 4 years ago to add to mine. And I think Allstate there's not a better opportunity out there, but you've got to be wanting to grow. There's other opportunities out there if you want to do that as well. But I think setting the expectation is a big thing. When I tell people that I didn't take a paycheck for two and a half years and my wife supported us the whole time, you've got to be ready for those kind of things, that it's not just money instantly. Because I've got friends that have called me up and said, hey, I want to get into this. How did you do it? What was your journey? And I tell them, and they quickly turn away. But so you got to have the stomach for it. But I started from scratch, right? So there's other opportunities where you can purchase books of business where maybe it's not as gut wrenching.
So, Kirst, let me ask you a question. You start from scratch. This is 2025, 9 years ago. Let's call it 2016. Fair enough?
Yep.
How'd you start writing business, cold calling, door knocking, networking, direct mail? What was the strategy?
Warm transfers have been my big thing since getting going. I mean, but going back to the MLM thing, I knew it was a volume play, and because I started on a contract with Allstate called ADB.
Yes.
And it started, I think it was like 37% on new business.
Yes.
So, and it went away really after 3 years, but it kind of tail ended into the fourth year. But I knew that I needed to maximize that contract as much as I could and grow as fast as I possibly could within those first 3 years so I could offset, right? And then luckily for me, and Joseph Puckett jokes with me that I came in just at the right time, because when my ADV was running out, that's when Allstate was starting with the enhanced compensation on new business and the variable comp. And that was, so I've never been off an enhanced commissions new business contract. So I've been able to continue. I've never had to like shift my mindset away from that. I've never been on a 10 and 10 or a 9 and 9 contract. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. You came in new business driven and you're still new business driven. Talk about your staff. How many people do you have on your team? Is everybody in office or some remote?
So I've got 4 salespeople. One of them is here in my office here in Bluffdale. One is in Southern Utah, and then I've got one in Texas and one in Oklahoma. And then I've got 2 service people in office, and then I have 2 telemarketers with team hired.
You have a big team going from scratch and not taking a paycheck home for 2.5 years to look where you are today. That's amazing. So Curtis, I've been, one of the reasons I did the 50 agents in 50 states, I wanted to learn a little bit about how insurance shows up in different states and the importance of having a local agent. There are some things that you know about Utah that I just don't know. 4 decades in the business, almost 4 decades in the business, I wouldn't know where to begin to prepare people locally to properly protect themselves. What would you say are some unique things about insurance in Utah that everyday people might know that it's important to talk to you as a local agent as opposed to 1-800 number or a .com only?
I think one of the biggest things is just the amount of attorneys. The attorney-driven claims in the state of Utah has gone up dramatically since 2020. We've got that historically hasn't been the case. Before 2020, we didn't have a whole lot of that. Our average premium per item was like $380 per item.
Wow.
And now we're pushing a little over 800. And a lot of that has to do with attorney-driven claims, because it's just every other radio ad, it seems like, is an attorney, all of the billboards. So it's talking to customers about those things. They just don't truly understand what's at risk when if they were to be in an accident, and it was their fault and they caused a lot of damage. And my wife being a nurse, like, I have a little bit more information on what healthcare costs are. And like the
Yes.
life flight around here, the helicopters that are taking you to the hospital, those have all been privatized. They used to be a lot cheaper to run, but now because they're privatized, they can charge whatever they want. So it costs a lot more. And then just being able to navigate the home insurance space, because like we saw in California with the fires, Utah has a fire risk. We haven't had a lot of fire risks, knock on wood, with our homes, but we do have that potential. We have a lot of people building up in the mountains now, and those risks continue to get more and more.
Interesting. So so obviously we're talking about the California wildfires that happened last week at the time of this shooting. People may be watching it sometime down the road. Excuse me. So you said Utah does have that risk because we're building in the mountains. You're an outdoorsman. We talked offline before joining the podcast about some of the hiking you've done up to 11,000 feet. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine with Utah already being 4,000 feet above sea level, when you get into the heights in the mountains, the wind and the potential for danger is a little bit different and exposes some risks.
Well, we're a pretty dry state. I mean, we're a desert, and and if it's a dry year, which certainly can happen, just like down in the Santa Ana winds, like those winds can pick up some embers and take it a ways, and everything just goes up. So being able to navigate that, but also navigating our underwriters to help with inspections. If you're writing your own house policy online, you're not able to go to bat for yourself to figure out what you can do to mitigate your home so you can get the insurance on it. There's a lot of companies that have just in southern Utah that have just said we're not insuring this area or this town. So those are the things, and it's usually the 1-800 numbers that are just making blanket statements and saying we're not insuring there anymore.
Right. And well, they're not there. They don't know the local market, and they don't have local expertise on the ground like you. So that's definitely an answer to the question. And when I heard you talking about the new risk of so much stuff being driven by lawsuits, driving up the prices, I imagine you and your team spend a lot of time talking about liability limits, medical pay limits, and probably umbrella policies as well.
Yep.
Definitely. Now, I also, I think I knew this, but I did more reading. I think you and I talked about it. There's a lot of big major companies based in Utah, and then a lot of high net worth people that choose to live there because it's such a desirable state and a favorable environment. So your clientele has a different exposure and definitely needs that local advice and protection from you.
Right. Yes, sir. Yeah, we've got a lot of people that have moved in all over the country. And like we've got Post Malone. Post Malone came here on a tour, and he just never left. He's had Raising Cane's go in. He's got his own franchise of Raising Cane's and loves it here. And we've got more and more really high net worth people coming in and buying up the houses up in the Park City area.
So I need to use one of my timeouts. What are Raising Cane's?
Raising Cane's is a chicken strip joint. It's big down in Texas area.
Okay.
So they've just recently made it over to Utah. They're not my favorite. My wife really doesn't like them, so not a lot of flavor in the chicken. But Post Malone likes them, I guess.
Hey, Post Malone's a big voice. He likes it. He's all over. I can see the franchises doing well. I can definitely see that happening.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, Kevin. Do you know where the first KFC was started at?
I don't know where it was started. I know the backstory. I know that he faced hundreds of no's. I know that Colonel Sanders started many years late in his career. Tell me it's Utah. Is that correct?
39th South and State Street at the Harmon's Cafe. So the guy who gave Colonel Sanders a start was Mr. Harmon on State Street. And my grandparents would talk they talk about how they would drive over an hour on State Street before the freeway was in, just to come up and see get the rolls. My grandma would talk about the rolls that you could get at the Harmon's Cafe, and that's where the first KFC was.
Well, shout out to Colonel Sanders for accepting all that rejection and sticking to it until he got to State Street in the corner there, and someone said yes. No different than us. No matter how hard we work, we're looking for one friendly yes. Well, Curtis, we've had a great conversation here today. One thing I forgot to ask you, we talked a lot of insurance. Mm-hmm. Talk about the community. We talked sports, we talked insurance. Tell me some things that you and your agency are involved in outside of the day-to-day insurance business.
We're just trying to, we're local here in Utah. I'm sorry, in Bluffdale, Utah. We don't have a lot of interactions around us right now. My kids are really little, and with my wife in grad school, I haven't had a chance to really break out. But there is a charity down the road that someone that I went to high school with. It's called the Single Parent Project that I've been involved with a little bit. Just involved in the local churches, just not a ton of the community, and not as much as I probably should be, but that's something that I need to work on, Kevin.
2025, take some of that helping hands, grant money, give it to those single parents. And as your kids begin to enroll in activities, I want you to get out of the office and sign up to coach their teams, even if you're not good at whatever they want to do. They'll force you to get out of the office and spend some time with them. Curtis, any closing comments, anything you want to share with the people, anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to share?
No, I think just really grateful for the opportunity to be on with you. Thanks for choosing me to be your Utah agent.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. You're absolutely great. Ladies and gentlemen, Curtis Osler.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. This was great. That was fun. Of